Our next passage is going to be about the history of circus. Let's go ahead. The circus is one of the oldest forms of entertainment in history. Although the modern circus has been around for a few centuries, related forms of public entertainment have been in existence for millennia. The animal trainers, clowns, and other circus performers who are familiar to us today can trace their roots to their coliseums, stadiums, and racetracks of the ancient world. The ancient Romans were the first to enjoy the circus. Around the 6th century BC, the Circus Maximus was founded in Rome as a venue for public entertainment, mostly chariot races, which were a popular spectator sport. Other events held at the Circus Maximus included gladiator fights and exhibits of exotic animals such as elephants and tigers. These entertainments were less common than chariot races but still very popular. The original Circus Maximus venue was built entirely of wood. By the height of the Roman Empire, it had gone through several renovations and had become a massive marble stadium that could seat more than 2 lakh spectators. Chariot races continued to be held at the Circus Maximus for almost a century after the last remnants of the Roman Empire had vanished. Eventually, the site was permanently retired and public entertainment was reduced to small bands of traveling performers and animal trainers. It was during the Dark Ages that the circus began to develop into what we know today. The monarchs of Europe had court jesters whose duty it was to provide amusement for the court. They combined the talents of jugglers, mimes, and clowns. The more common people enjoyed the performances of traveling entertainers who went from village to village putting on shows during festival. These performers made up the medieval circus, which had little in common with the Circus Maximus other than adopting the World Circus as its name. Leisure time was extremely rare during the Dark Ages, and people had few opportunities to enjoy circus performances. However, the circus survived to make a return to its former grandeur in the 18th century. England was one of the first nations to embrace the modern circus. During the late 1700s, an Englishman named Philip Astley founded the first modern circus. He was a skilled rider who invented stunt riding on horseback. He performed his stunts in a circus ring, another of his ideas within an indoor stadium. After his act became popular in London, he was asked by Louis XV to perform in France. He later expanded his act to include clowns, acrobats, and parades of trained animals. The last addition to his act was slapstick humor. He had horseback riders pretend to fall off their horses and then go stumbling after them. Shortly after Astley's death, the circus spread to America. During the early 1800s, the United States took to the circus quickly after learning of its popularity in Europe. Joshua Brown, an American businessman, introduced the circus tent in 1825. The use of portable tents allowed him to take his act all over the country. His traveling circus was a massive success as a business enterprise and was loved by audiences everywhere. Most circuses today are variations of Brown's circus. Now that we have heard or we have just read a passage about the history of circus, let's move on to the follow-up questions. Do the following describe the ancient circus? Modern circus or both? So we got to choose A, B or C, right? So let's see which alphabet to be chosen for what. So A stands for ancient circus, B stands for modern circus, and C stands for both ancient as well as modern circus. So these three are the options that are available. Let's move on to the questions or the statements, and we got to see whether the descriptions match ancient circus or modern circus or both of them. The first one, they had animal exhibits. Now this is very clear. We saw both in the ancient as well as the modern circus that animals were used as exhibits. So it's going to be option C. Next question. They entertained spectators with races. So, in which type, ancient or modern or both, where did people or not people, I mean the people who are conducting the circus, okay, so in which type, ancient, modern or both, where did people who conduct the circus entertain the spectators with races? The passage clearly says that it was in the ancient circus that we had races to entertain the spectators. Moving on to the third passage, or sorry, the third description. The entertainment included falling of horses. So that clearly says, the passage says that in modern circus during Ashley's period, did he conduct such activities or they had such entertainments where people were falling off the horses and they were stumbling over. So it definitely comes under modern circus. It took place in a massive venue. So the very first paragraph, first and second paragraph, clearly tells us that in ancient days or in ancient circuses, though the first circus was just made out of wood, later on it was converted into a very big stadium. So obviously the place of where, or the place where the circus being held. When the place is really massive, it was definitely only in ancient circus and not in modern circus. So that brings us to the end of the first type of question under this comprehension passage, where the descriptions are given and you need to categorize them, whether they fall under ancient or modern circus or both of them. And we have read the descriptions and accordingly we have given the answers. So if it is ancient, we have given A. If it's modern, we've given B. And if it is followed in both ancient and modern, we have given C. Now let's move on to the next type of question under the history of circus. And the question goes like this. Choose A, B, C or D. So this is more of a choose the correct answer question. So you are going to be given a phrase or a sentence, and you will choose the appropriate answer for it. Let's move on to the first question. The Circus Maximus. So that is the question. We are going to look on to the options. So option A was not a popular place. Option B, developed during the Dark Ages. Option C, went through renovations. And option D, took place in a portable tent. So there we have the four options, and we will have to narrow down to one. The Circus Maximus was not a popular place. No, it was definitely a popular place. It was developed during the Dark Ages. No, it was not developed during the Dark Ages. It went through renovations. Okay. It took place in a portable tent. No, only modern circus took place in a portable tent. So yes, if you remember, it was initially built out of wood, and later it went through a lot of renovations. So Circus Maximus, I think option C should be a more appropriate or relevant answer. Let's move on to the next question. The court jesters of the Dark Ages usually. So that's a question. Let's check on the options. Skilled animal trainers, had several talents, performed at festivals, entertained common people. So there we have the four options. The court jesters of the Dark Ages were skilled animal trainers. They had several talents. They performed at festivals and they entertained common people. Definitely they were not animal trainers, okay? They were people who were working in the circus who were animal trainers, but not the court jesters. So let's omit that. They had several talents. Okay, yes, they did have a lot of talents. Then option C says that they performed at festivals. No, they did not perform in any common festivals. They were always there in the court. And they entertained common people. We just discussed about it. The court jesters are people who are supposed to entertain the majesty. The royal highness are not common people. So that leaves us with this option. So the court jesters of the Dark Ages usually have, they had a lot of talents. So that is our answer. Let's move on to the last question. In the 18th century, the modern circus was founded by, moving on to the options, A horse rider from England, option B a Roman businessman, option C performers in France, and option D band of Americans. So there we have the four options. In the 18th century, the modern circus was founded by a horse rider from England, performers in France, a Roman businessman, and a band of Americans. So, a horse rider from England, okay, a Roman businessman, no. Performers from France, no. From America, definitely not. He was a common horse rider from England. And who was he? The passage says that it was Ashley. Right? So here we have the next type of question where they have given a phrase or a clause or sentence where, with four options and you choose the option that stands very close to the question. So you chose option A, B or C. It is nothing but literally like our choose the correct answer.